The Braves make a big trade on Monday, getting first baseman Matt Olson from the A's and a blockbuster deal, sending back 4 prospects. But what does this mean for Freddie Freeman? Is the Freddie Freeman era in Atlanta finally over? And where do the Braves go next to complete the roster? We'll talk about all of that on today's episode of Locked On Braves. So let's get into it.
Hey, this is Stacey Gotsoulias,
DC Lundberg,
Ryan Finkelstein,
Taylor Blake Ward,
host of Locked On Yankees,
Locked On Mariners,
Locked On Mets,
Locked On Angels,
and you're listening to Locked On Braves.
Locked On Braves,
Locked On Braves,
part of the Locked On Podcast Network.
Hey, and welcome back to Locked On Braves, brought to you by the Locked On Podcast Network, where we talk about your favorite teams every day. I am your host, Jake Mastroianni. You can follow me on Twitter simply at shortstopball. Check out my bio there to see everywhere I am covering the game of baseball, including the Atlanta Braves in written form over at tomahawktake.com. And you can go over there now to see my reaction story on the Matt Olson trade, which is what we're obviously going to be talking about today on this special edition Monday afternoon podcast. It'll be my second podcast on Monday. So if you didn't already check out the one I posted earlier this morning, go back and listen to that one as well. But obviously have to talk about this trade for Matt Olson and what all that entails for the Atlanta Braves. We'll talk about what Matt Olson brings to the Braves, what the Braves gave up. We'll touch on the impact for what it means for Freddie Freeman. And then we'll talk about what the Braves do next, because the roster is still incomplete, even with acquiring Matt Olson. But let's talk about Freddie Freeman first. And I know that's weird to talk about when you just traded for a big time all-star type player in Matt Olson, but I think what a lot of Braves fans are thinking right now are about Freddie Freeman, and it looks like his time in Atlanta has come to an end. You've already had the GM Alex Anthopoulos go in front of reporters and basically crying about making this trade for Matt Olson, knowing what that means, somewhat implying that Freddie Freeman will not be back with the Atlanta Braves. And I'll be honest, my initial feelings on it were sad. I understand it's business. I knew this was a possibility all along, but in my heart, I always just felt like he was coming back. And it feels like a breakup. And even though it might be good, it might be for what's best going forward, it still hurts. You still have all those memories, those good memories that you shared with them, but it's still going to hurt. And that's kind of what I feel. I mean, it was honestly somewhat of a gut punch. I mean, I love Freddie Freeman, not just the player, but the person as well, and what he means for the Atlanta Braves franchise, which will never go away. That's still always going to be there. He'll always be a part of this franchise in my mind, but it hurts. Like I said, I think the breakup analogy is the best one that you can come up with. We had a lot of good years together, but it's come to an end, sadly. And, I'll always love Freddie Freeman. I'll somewhat cheer for him depending on where he goes, but I don't want to get too much into that right now, whether or not this is the right or wrong decision for the front office. I think that we'll have to wait until we find out where Freddie Freeman goes and how much he signs for. So I will save that for another podcast once Freddie Freeman does sign somewhere. But my just initial feelings on it, as a fan, it was sad. It was a true gut punch on the situation. But let's focus on Matt Olson and what the Braves are getting here. We've said for a while now that there really are 2 options at first base for the Braves. Either you re-sign Freddie Freeman or you have to get Matt Olson. There's just no way you're going to replace that production. And at least with Matt Olson, you're going to replace the production of Freddie Freeman. I mean, that's as good as it can get. If you're not going to sign Freddie Freeman, getting Matt Olson is as good as it can get. He'll turn 28 in March, so he's 4 years younger, which probably played a huge factor in this. If, you really got Alex Anthopoulos backed into a corner and got his opinion on this. I think a lot of it had to do with the age here. And giving a 5-6 year contract to a 32-year-old, or trading for somebody, who's 28, who, they potentially could give a long-term deal to or try to extend. But Matt Olson, a great player in his own right. Again, we've talked about it a ton through the lockout, but his baseball savant page, it's filled with red, just in the highest percentiles there. In 2021, his average exit velocity was 91.6 miles per hour. Keep in mind that a hard hit ball is 95 miles per hour or harder. So he was very nearly averaging a hard hit ball every time he put the ball in play. Had a walk percentage over 13%. Very good. Gets on base. Might not hit for the average of Freddie Freeman, more of a 260, 270 hitter, but he is still going to get on base at a very high clip. And again, a very high hard hit percentage of 48.8%. Again, nearly half the time he's putting the ball in play, it's a hard hit of 95 miles per hour or harder. And last year with the A's, he slashed 271, 371. Again, that high on base percentage of 540 slugging with 39 home runs and 111 runs batted in to go along with a 911 OPS and a WAR of 5, according to Fangraphs method for WAR. And on top of that, he's one of the best defensive first baseman in the game as well. A 2-time Gold Glove winner, left-handed, obviously, playing at first base. So you bring back that left-handed pop to the lineup, which very much needs, because Freddie Freeman was really the only true left-hander they had. Well, he wasn't technically on the roster, but I was still considering him on the roster. They really had no true left-handed bats in the lineup other than Ozzie, who's a switch hitter. So you replace that left-handed bat as well. He's from Georgia, so hometown player. So you got to love that. Perhaps could help in talks as a possible extension candidate. Look, he's going to be good. He's going to be really good. I think, and I tweeted this out, I think the way most fans are feeling right now is, yes, Matt Olson's a good player. He'll be good. But Freddie Freeman was the heart of this team. It's going to be hard replacing him. And now we just got to hope he doesn't go to the Dodgers. Hopefully he goes to an American League team or somewhere else where we don't have to face him, because I just feel like he will absolutely haunt the Braves when he plays them. But we shouldn't be, necessarily comparing Freddie Freeman to Matt Olson. I don't think that's fair to Matt Olson. I hope Braves fans will surround Matt Olson with all the support that you can give him. And I think, Braves fans will, and him being a local product, again, I think will help. But he's a great player. He's really good. He's an all-star level type player. You're not going to see a huge drop in production. What you're going to potentially miss, and I don't know about Matt Olson as a clubhouse guy, you're going to miss that, what Freddie brings off the field, what he brings with his leadership, the face of the franchise, what he means to the community there, what he and his family mean to the community there. That's what you're going to miss right now. Maybe Olson replaces that too, but again, it's a two-year deal right now as things stand. So could be in the same situation in 2 years. Again, I tweeted out a lot of my feelings. Go and follow me at Shortstop Ball. You want to hear more of my feelings on this trade. But another thing I'll say is that if the Braves win another World Series in the next 2 years, or they win another World Series with Matt Olson, assuming maybe they'll extend him and he's around longer, they win another World Series with Matt Olson, I would consider this trade a win no matter what. They don't, and Freddie Freeman goes to the Dodgers and wins a World Series over there or with the Yankees or somewhere else, that's going to sting a little bit more. But I'm not trying to, say that I don't love Matt Olson. That is certainly not the case. He's going to be a great player. He's going to be a lot of fun to watch. Again, great defensively, big power, light tower power. I talked about how hard he hits the baseball. So he's going to be fun player to watch. It's going to be difficult not seeing Freddie Freeman over there at first base for sure. But again, don't lose sight of the fact that the Braves got a really good player in this trade, and that will be the new first baseman for the Braves. And next, we'll look at what the Braves gave up in this and what prospects are left for the Braves after this big deal. It's that time of year again. It's college basketball's tournament is finally upon us. From all the latest odds, contests, and player props, BetOnline.net is the #1 source for all your sports betting needs and info. BetOnline remains the best spot for all your sports scores, podcasts, and news this season. And it's not just basketball. BetOnline is your continued source for all your sporting wagering information needs, including live betting in your favorite Vegas casino games. Head to the website today or use your mobile device to learn more about the trends in action. BetOnline, where the game starts. Also, make sure you follow the podcast on Twitter at @LockedOn_Braves and subscribe to the Locked On Braves podcast wherever you get your podcasts. Subscribe to us on YouTube as well. And I wanted to thank you all for all the support you've given me since taking over the podcast. We have now grown to over 500 followers on Twitter and over 600 subscribers on YouTube. So I really do appreciate all the support. Want to thank you there. If you haven't already, you're listening to this, please go support the show on both platforms. Follow us on Twitter at LockedOn_Braves and subscribe to us on YouTube at Locked On Braves. Trying to get to 1,000 followers and 1,000 subscribers before opening day. So I really would appreciate your support. It does help out a ton as far as the show goes. So I really do appreciate it. And thanks for making Locked On Braves your first listen each and every day. Post episodes daily, 5 days a week, Monday through Friday, and we are free and available on all platforms. Now, the reason I didn't think a Matt Olson trade would ever happen is because Alex Anthopoulos hasn't done this before. Since he's been with the Atlanta Braves, we've all been waiting on him to make that big move where he gives up some top prospects for an all-star level type player. And I just never thought he would do it. And he did. And he paid a pretty big price, in my opinion. Gave up Shea Langeliers, which is many believe a top 3 prospect in the system. Cristian Pache, who was a former top prospect in the system, still by many a top 100, or by some, I should say, not many at this point, by some considered to be a top 100 prospect. I think I had him 4th or 5th on my list. Ryan Cusick, who they just took in the first round of the 2021 draft, and Joey Estes, another, high upside starter. So they gave up 4 really solid prospects. And, I was saying all along that in order for this deal to get done, the Braves would have to give up, either one of Shea Langeliers or Michael Harris to get this done. And that's why I thought this deal would never happen. I thought Alex would never do that, and he did. And I think Langeliers is the one that really sticks out to a lot of fans here because it looked like he was being groomed to be the future catcher for the Atlanta Braves. Great defensively, solid pop at the plate. I really think I thought he was in line to take over, once Travis d'Arnaud kind of ended his run with the Braves. And I thought Langeliers would be the catcher for years to come in Atlanta, but that is no longer the case as he was part of this deal going to Oakland. Again, I think we already know he's a plus defender. I think he has the ability to hit 250 with 20 to 25 home runs and be kind of a fringe all-star level catcher. So, I mean, that is a big get right there just in itself for Oakland for 2 years of Matt Olson. On top of that, the Braves also gave them Cristian Pache, who, look, another elite defender. We already know that. It's will the bat come around enough to stick at the big league level. I've kind of compared him a lot to Kevin Kiermaier for the Rays, somebody who can play exceptional defense, be a 240, 250 hitter, and give you double-digit home runs. Certainly not an all-star level type player, but a very solid defender, solid player on a big league club that can bat, 8th or 9th in a lineup. I thought he was going to get a shot to start the year as the Braves center fielder. That will obviously not be the case now. We'll talk about that as far as what the Braves do next, because there's still some holes in that outfield. I love Pache as well. I talked about how I got to see his first hit live, even during the 2020 COVID season, staying at a hotel room at the Omni, got to witness it from the balcony there. And it was a lot of fun just seeing his energy, how pumped up he was, even though it was like a slow dribbler on the infield that he beat out. He had just joined Twitter and had already become, really great there. So I was really starting to love Pache, getting excited for his 2022 season, but now I'll have to get excited for him in Oakland. And then they gave up 2 really big pitchers in Cusick and Estes, who I think have some very big upside. I mean, Cusick throws close to 100 miles per hour. It's just whether or not he can develop the secondary stuff. He does that. I mean, he's at the top of the rotation type ceiling kind of guy. And I think the floor for him is, a closer. So I think Cusick's a very solid arm to get there. And Joey Estes, a big body type guy who I think could stick in a rotation for a while. I had his ceiling as a number 2 starter. He's got his velocity continues to tick up in the mid 90s now at this point. Very good slider in times when I watched him this past year. He's just 20 years old. I mean, there's still some projectability for him there as well. So again, a guy who I think could play catcher for a long time, a short center fielder who we know is elite defensively, and I think could hit 8th and 9th in your lineup for a while. And then 2 high upside arms in Cusick and Estes, all of that for 2 years of Matt Olson. So I think the A's did very good in this deal. Again, it's a deal the Braves had to make if they felt like they couldn't get Freddie Freeman. And that's why I have to just hold my full evaluation of this trade, because a lot depends on what Freeman gets, what Freeman was asking for, which we may never find that out. But if Freeman signs somewhere for 160 million or something like that, I'm going to be a little ticked off, to be quite honest, because this was a huge package for 2 years of Matt Olson. And I think you have to extend Matt Olson at this point. With all you've given up, I think you have to try to extend Matt Olson, at least through his age 32 season. If you can get that done, then I think it makes this trade a lot better. And I know I talked about in the first segment, look, Olson is good as far as the team is concerned in 2022 and 2023. They'll be fine with him at first base. But you don't win a World Series in those 2 years. You give up all these prospects. You don't bring back Freddie Freeman. You don't extend Matt Olson. This is going to look like a terrible trade, in my opinion. And that's a lot of ifs, a lot of unknowns. But, just when we look back on 3 to 4 years from now, if all those things go like that, it's going to be a very hard pill to swallow for Braves fans. But like I said, at least they didn't have to give up Michael Harris. That's about the only thing I can say for this trade, because they gave up a pretty big haul, in my opinion, for 2 years of Matt Olson. So I think you got to try to extend them. And again, I think Alex only does this deal if he felt like he could not get Freddie Freeman. There was no chance he was going to sign Freddie Freeman. But that's a pretty big haul. Those are the players the Braves gave up. Look, prospects are prospects. They all could turn out to be duds, but I still think those are I feel like that's a very solid package for Oakland, again, for 2 years of Matt Olson. All right, so Matt Olson is in tow. We know who the first baseman is going to be. What else are the Braves going to do to finish out this offseason? Because there are still some holes on this roster. This is the time of year I've pretty much given up on my New Year's resolutions, but not this year with Built Bar. Doesn't even feel like a resolution because I enjoy eating them. All Built Bars are covered in 100% real chocolate, low calorie, high protein. You can replace your candy bars with these. They are better, and they're better for you. A typical candy bar can be anywhere from 200 to 300 calories, while most Built Bars contain 130 calories, 4 grams of sugar, 4 net carbs, and 17 grams of protein. And they have a whole bunch of wonderful flavors. They're coming out with new flavors all the time. So make sure you continue to look at built.com for all the new flavors coming out. Mint brownie, coconut almond, cookies and cream, which is my favorite. Go to built.com, use the promo code LOCKED15 and get 15% off your order. Again, use promo code LOCKED15 for 15% off at built.com. All right, so the Braves have completed one big part of their offseason in figuring out first base. It may not have gone how I thought it was going to go, and I'll be the first to admit that. I never thought they would trade for Matt Olson, and I thought it was going to be Freddie Freeman all along. But they do get the first base position filled nicely. Again, I want to reiterate, Matt Olson is a great player. He will be very good for the Braves at first base. He gives them a chance to continue to try and win another World Series. That being said, there are still some holes on this team that need to be figured out. Matt Olson wasn't an upgrade. He was a replacement. He is replacing Freddie Freeman. There are still other upgrades that need to be made on this team, specifically in the outfield, specifically left-handed. And, 3 names immediately come to mind for me: Eddie Rosario, Michael Conforto, Jock Peterson. I think you have to get at least one of those 3 guys right now to maybe not even complete this off season, but complete the lineup. I wish they could get 2 of them, whether it be Rosario and Conforto, or Rosario and Peterson, and run that back. That all is going to depend on Jack Peterson. I talked about this on the first Monday podcast, as we had a question from Chris Shaffey asking about Jack Peterson. I'd love to have Peterson back if he's okay having a diminished role, being somebody who comes off the bench, maybe starts 2 or 3 games a week against a right-handed starter. I would love to get either Conforto and Peterson or Rosario and Peterson, something of that combination. I think they need 2 solid left-handed bats like that, one to start in the outfield, one coming off the bench. I would like for them to get another veteran starter to kind of complete the rotation. Not necessarily a must, but especially with the condensed spring training and starters not being able to go deep into games early on, I think it would definitely be a good idea to get another veteran starter. Doesn't have to be, anything crazy. I think Charlie Morton's going to be, ready to go on opening day, if not close to opening day. So I think the rotation is going to be, fine with him and Fried and Anderson. And you got the other group of young guys ready to go. I think it would be good to get another starter in there. Obviously, upgrading the bench and bullpen is going to be key as well. And something to keep in mind is with the new playoff changes, being one of those top 2 seeds in the division winners is key now, because you get a bye in that first round. So the Braves need to be ready to go from the jump this time. They can't fall behind and then, work their way back into an 88-win season and then fight through a wild card series, then a division series, then a championship series, then a World Series. It's going to make it a lot harder for those teams who don't finish with one of those top 2 seeds as division winners. So I would like to see them fill out the rest of their bullpen, but behind those top 4 or 5 guys, I really think they need to do a lot of work on the bench. Talked about maybe getting Jock Peterson as somebody that could be a nice left-handed bat off the bench. I know there's some other options out there as well, but definitely would like to see them upgrade that bench for sure. So we'll see what they do next, what plans, surprises Alex Anthopoulos has for us. Should be an exciting rest of the offseason. Now we've got first base figured out. Let's see what Alex decides to do with the outfield. But that will do it for this episode of Locked On Braves. Be sure to follow us on Twitter at @LockedOn_Braves. You can follow me at ShortstopBall. Also, please make sure you go subscribe to the podcast wherever you get your podcast. Subscribe to us on YouTube. And again, follow us on Twitter. We're trying to get to 1,000 followers by opening day. But again, that will do it for me here on today's episode of Locked On Braves, and we will talk to you next time.